Yes, there's a wrong way to drink bourbon, and I'll tell you how to avoid it. I'm the bourbon beginner and just starting to learn about bourbon and working to build my palate so I can better understand and enjoy bourbon. So if you're a beginner like me, come along. Maybe we can learn together. Now, as far as the way to drink bourbon, if you like your bourbon straight or neat, as they say, that's fine. If you like bourbon over ice, I'd do that too. That's fine. Heck, if you like your bourbon with Coke or Dr. Pepper, go for it. The wrong way to drink bourbon is the way that you don't enjoy it. So, however you want to drink bourbon, that's the way to drink bourbon. Okay, now there is a standardized way, at least what you'll see in all the videos, to taste bourbon. So let's talk about that. First, pour about an ounce or two into a Glencairn glass. Now, I don't have one of those yet, so I just use a whiskey glass. But you can use any glass you like, but it's better if it's tapered and has a rounded shape, as that lets you get a better smell of the bourbon and get all the tastes. And it's also good if you go ahead and you pour your bourbon and let it sit for about 5 minutes before you taste it. So you just let it rest. Then you give it a swirl and look at the colors. Is it clear? Does it have a straw color? Is it amber? Is it a dark caramel colored? And then when you're swirling it, does it stick to the glass? Does it seem to have a good viscosity? And then you give it an open mouth sniff. And the reason for that is so that the alcohol doesn't overpower you. Do you notice hints of caramel, vanilla, oak, leather fruits? This is the nose that you're hearing a lot of people talk about. And one of the things I'm trying to learn how to detect all these flavors. Then take a sip, swirl it around in your tongue. How does it feel in your mouth? Is it thick or is it thin? And what flavors do you taste? I mean, that's the tasting notes. Do you taste that caramel? Do you taste baking spices? I've heard people say that, and I'm not really sure what baking spices are yet, but we'll learn. Finally, swallow and find what kind of finish does it have. Does the heat stay with you for a while, or is it really gone really quickly? Now, I'm sure there's a lot more than that. But at least for now, that's kind of the basics. And I'm concentrating on one bourbon a week to try to build my bourbon palate. And I want you to do this with me. Think of it like conditioning or running laps. I mean, we're going to do the conditioning first and then start building that palate so that we can detect all the different flavors of bourbon and better enjoy the bourbon. Okay, so let's taste last week's bourbon. It's Maker's Mark. And I didn't really taste any of the sweet oak and vanilla and fruity essences in their website. If you saw my video, I basically just coughed all the way through it because I'm still just kind of overpowered by drinking straight bourbon and the alcohol. But I've been drinking a small glass every night for a week. That's all I drink, so I'm not drinking this on top of a lot of other stuff. And now I'm going to taste it again and see if my palate has improved. If you've been doing this, are you noticing any improvement? Are you noticing any new flavors? Let me know in the comments. I'd like to hear what your journey is on developing your palate. Okay. So let's go ahead and taste it. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to be picking a different bourbon and taste that, and I'll be drinking that one over the course of the next week. So do this with me. When we come back, we can taste again and see if we notice any more of the flavors or notes. Okay, so let's go ahead and taste it. Okay. So we give it a swirl and smell. And I'm not really tasting all the fruity essences and all that, but maybe I'm smelling either caramel or maybe that's like butterscotch. And I've never heard anybody say that Maker's Mark has a butterscotch note, so maybe that's just me. Let me go ahead and taste it. Yeah, it kind of does. It tastes like either butterscotch or caramel. I'm not sure. I guess maybe that's what it is. But at least it's not overpowering. It's like I'm not coughing like I was in the last video. If you saw that, that was kind of funny. So, kind of sweet. Okay, let's put it over ice. And what the ice does is it kind of maybe mellows it out a little bit. And that's the way I like to drink it. And it does smooth it out. It makes it, at least for me, a little easier to drink than straight or neat. Yeah, I think I'm tasting like a butterscotch. Maybe that's what caramel's supposed to taste like. But it does taste a little different. It's not as overpowering. And at least I am getting a different taste. All right. So let's move on to this week's bourbon. And for this week, I've selected Evan Williams Black. It's an 86 proof bourbon, which is really 43% alcohol. The proof is just basically a number that's twice the alcohol content. And it's labeled as straight bourbon and has no age statement. So it's aged at least 4 years. We'll learn a little bit more about that in future videos. And we'll talk about that. And from the website, the nose is light with deep vanilla and mint. The taste is notes of oak, brown sugar, and caramel. The finish is medium to long. Okay, why did I pick that bourbon? Well, A, it's inexpensive and it's available everywhere. B, I'm just a beginner and I don't want to waste an expensive bourbon on my palate at this point when I really can't appreciate it. I can't appreciate the complexity of a real expensive bourbon. It has a relatively low proof, so the alcohol is not going to be as overpowering as something that's like a full, like a bottle and bond or like a full proof bourbon. And lastly, well, actually, it is straightforward. It's a very simple, straightforward bourbon. With what they say are easy to identify notes, and I guess most importantly, I had it on hand. This is what I use for making basically old fashions. So let's go ahead and give it a taste, and then we'll see what we think. So here's another glass with the Evan Williams Black. Give it a swirl. It's been sitting out for about 5 minutes or so. So maybe that's the oak that I'm smelling. So let's give it a taste. It does taste different. There's a little bit of a spice, but at least I can taste it. I mean, I can sort of taste it. I'm not sure what I'm tasting, but I can taste something. So, hey, that's something at least, Okay, let's put it over ice. Okay. Yeah, it's a little spice. But I really can't tell what. But that's part of it. I'm trying to build my palate and just doing the laps. Just kind of getting used to bourbon. And then I'll keep drinking this bourbon every night for the next week. And then we'll come back next week and I'll give my impressions again and see if impressions of it have changed, if I'm starting to taste any of the notes. Hey, it's a journey. So come back next week and we'll do another tasting. And do this with me. You don't have to do the same bourbon. You can pick something that you have on hand, but just taste it. Concentrate on what you can smell, what you can taste now. Drink it over the course of a week, and then do another tasting, and see if you're noticing something different. See if your palate's improving or your palate's changing. And hey, I'm a beginner at this, and I'm sure I'm going to make some mistakes. But that doesn't mean I won't have a good time doing it. So come back next week, and we'll see if we've improved our palates, and together we'll learn a little bit more about bourbon. In the meantime, enjoy!